Have you ever witnessed courage trigger something so primal it changed the rules of survival forever? When rangers raced against time to save a baby lion from a massive python's silent death grip, they thought their heroic rescue would be the end of the story. But what the lion pride did next, their terrifying response to seeing humans save their cub, unleashed a fury so raw, so beyond anything ever documented, that it redefined our understanding of family bonds in the wild.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you.
The Zambezi National Park stretches along the mighty Zambezi River in Zimbabwe like a living tapestry, where ancient mopane woodlands give way to lush riverine forests that harbor some of Africa's most dangerous predators. This pristine wilderness, famous for its dramatic landscapes and diverse wildlife, creates a complex ecosystem where massive elephants share watering holes with Nile crocodiles, while lions hunt through terrain that ranges from open grasslands to dense thickets, perfect for ambush predators. Towering baobab trees rise from the floodplains like ancient sentinels, their massive trunks scarred by centuries of seasonal floods that bring both life and destruction to this dynamic environment. The park's network of seasonal channels and permanent lagoons creates a maze of waterways where python populations thrive in the dense reed beds, using the labyrinthine landscape to perfect hunting techniques that have made them legends among the region's most experienced rangers. This isn't your typical conservation rescue story about human intervention and wildlife protection. What you're about to witness transcends every assumption about gratitude, territorial behavior, and the terrifying power of family bonds when tested beyond their limits. It's not about research protocols or ranger duties. It's about the moment when an act of human compassion triggers something so primal, so absolutely terrifying in its intensity that it challenges our understanding of what lions are capable of when their deepest instincts are awakened. The park's unique geography creates deadly encounters where silent predators can strike without warning, while the complex social structures of lion prides operating in this environment have evolved responses to threats that go far beyond typical territorial defense. Here, in this wilderness where survival depends on reading subtle signs and responding to danger with lightning speed, family loyalty has been forged into something approaching the sacred. On this particular morning, as mist rose from the warm river channels and filtered sunlight painted the landscape in shades of gold and emerald, destiny was preparing to reveal the terrifying depths of parental fury that lay dormant within Africa's most formidable predators.
Senior Ranger Michael Nkub and his partner, Ranger Sarah Mutendi, had dedicated their careers to protecting the Zambezi's incredible wildlife. Their combined 25 years of experience making them legendary figures among Zimbabwe's conservation community. Michael, a soft-spoken Shona man whose weathered face bore the marks of countless encounters with dangerous animals, possessed an intuitive understanding of predator behavior that had saved lives on multiple occasions. His steady hands and patient demeanor concealed the lightning-fast reflexes that had earned him respect from both colleagues and the creatures he protected. Sarah, whose tracking skills had been honed during childhood, spent learning traditional bushcraft from her grandmother, brought invaluable local knowledge to their partnership. Her ability to read animal signs, interpret behavioral patterns, and predict wildlife movements had prevented numerous dangerous encounters, while her calm presence under pressure had become essential to the park's most challenging rescue operations. Their morning patrol had been routine until their radio crackled with an emergency report from tourists who had witnessed something that sent chills down every ranger's spine. In the dense reed beds near the main river channel, they had spotted what appeared to be a massive python in the process of constricting one of the park's most precious residents, a young lion cub from Chakafira's pride. Little Simba, barely 4 months old, represented the future of one of Zambezi's most successful lion families. His golden coat and playful spirit had made him a favorite among park staff and visitors alike, while his fearless curiosity often led him into situations that tested his family's protective abilities. The young cub's bright amber eyes sparkled with the kind of innocent wonder that made him beloved by everyone who encountered him. But it was Chakafira's pride that made this emergency particularly significant. Led by the magnificent lioness whose name meant fierce protector in Shona, this family had developed a reputation for displaying protective behavior so intense they bordered on the legendary. Chakafira herself was a battle-scarred matriarch whose maternal instincts had been tested by years of defending her offspring against every threat the African wilderness could produce.
The first warning came as an eerie silence that settled over the reed beds like a suffocating blanket, immediately alerting Michael and Sarah to the presence of something dangerous moving through the waterway's dense vegetation. The rangers had been responding to the tourists' emergency call when they noticed the complete absence of sound that typically indicated a major predator was actively hunting in the area. But this silence was different, more complete and ominous than anything they had experienced during their years of patrol. Michael's radio crackled with urgent updates from the tourist vehicle that had first reported the sighting. Their guide's voice carried the barely controlled panic of someone witnessing a tragedy they were powerless to prevent. "The python has the cub completely wrapped. We can see the coils tightening. The mother is pacing nearby but can't reach them through the dense reeds." Sarah's tracking instincts immediately recognized the tactical nightmare they were facing. Python attacks in dense vegetation created rescue scenarios that challenged even the most experienced rangers, requiring them to navigate treacherous terrain while confronting one of Africa's most formidable predators in an environment that favored the serpent's advantages. Her whispered assessment to Michael carried the grim reality that they had perhaps minutes before the situation became irreversible. The ranger's vehicle struggled through the muddy approaches to the reed beds, its engine noise seeming unnaturally loud in the oppressive silence that had settled over the area. Through their binoculars, they caught glimpses of movement that confirmed their worst fears. A massive python, easily 25 feet in length, had indeed captured little Simba and was in the process of methodical constriction that would soon prove fatal. But what made this emergency particularly ominous was the behavior of Chakafira's pride in response to the crisis. Instead of the typical distress vocalizations that rangers expected from lions facing family emergencies, an unnatural quiet had settled over the pride's territory. The absence of roars, calls, or any acoustic indication of their presence suggested something far more sinister was developing. A focused, coordinated response that experienced rangers recognized as the calm before an absolutely devastating storm. What the rangers discovered when they reached the reed beds was a nightmare scenario that challenged every protocol in their emergency response training. The massive python that had captured little Simba was a prehistoric monster, nearly 30 feet in length, its diamond-patterned scales glistening with moisture from the humid reed environment as it methodically applied crushing pressure to the young lion's small frame. The serpent's positioning within the dense vegetation created the perfect killing chamber, too confined for adult lions to mount an effective rescue, yet providing the python with complete tactical control over its victim. The attack had been executed with the silent precision that made these predators legendary among African wildlife. Little Simba's weak, mewing calls provided heartbreaking evidence that he was still alive, but rapidly approaching the point where the python's constriction would prove fatal. Each coil of the massive serpent was positioned with surgical accuracy, applying pressure to vital points while maintaining the perfect grip that allowed for methodical strangulation without damaging the prey's flesh. What made this encounter particularly terrifying was the python's apparent intelligence in choosing both victim and location.
The serpent had positioned itself in a section of the reed bed that was virtually inaccessible to adult lions, while the density of vegetation made any rescue attempt exponentially more dangerous for potential human intervention.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
The snake's yellow eyes held the cold calculation of a predator that had perfected its technique through countless successful hunts. From their position at the edge of the reed bed, Michael and Sarah could see the horrifying efficiency of the python's kill in progress. The young cub's struggles were growing weaker with each passing minute, his golden coat barely visible within the serpent's crushing embrace. The rangers' radio updates to park headquarters carried the urgency of professionals who understood they were witnessing the final moments of one of their most beloved residents. But perhaps the most ominous aspect of the entire crisis was the continued silence from Chakafira's pride. The absence of any response from the adult lions suggested they were engaged in planning something that would soon prove far more terrifying than any rescue attempt the rangers could imagine.
Michael and Sarah's response to witnessing little Simba's mortal peril revealed the profound internal battle between professional protocol and human compassion that defined every true conservationist's calling. Their training emphasized non-interference in natural predator-prey interactions, but watching a beloved young animal being slowly crushed to death by one of nature's most efficient killers triggered responses that went far deeper than regulatory compliance. The rangers' tactical assessment was grim but clear. Entering the dense reed bed to confront a 30-foot python meant exposing themselves to potentially fatal danger while operating in terrain that heavily favored the serpent's advantages. Sarah's traditional bushcraft knowledge provided crucial insights about navigating the treacherous footing and limited visibility, but even her expertise couldn't eliminate the fundamental reality that they would be engaging one of Africa's most dangerous predators in its perfect killing environment. Michael's radio communications with park headquarters carried the controlled urgency of someone requesting backup while knowing that help was at least 40 minutes away, far too late to save little Simba if they waited for additional personnel. His whispered discussions with Sarah revealed the terrible calculation that any rescue attempt would require immediate action despite the overwhelming odds against success. From the tourist vehicles positioned at safe distances around the reed bed, international visitors watched this unfolding tragedy with growing horror. Their guides' whispered commentary explained the hopelessness of the situation, while their cameras captured what appeared to be the final moments of one of Zambezi's most beloved young lions. The tourists' presence as helpless observers added psychological pressure to an already impossible situation. But what disturbed the rangers most was the continued silence from Chakafira's pride. Their experience with lion family dynamics had taught them to expect desperate vocalizations, frantic attempts at direct intervention, or at minimum the kind of distress calls that would summon other pride members to assist in the rescue. The complete absence of any acoustic indication of the pride's presence suggested something far more ominous was developing, a coordinated response that might prove more dangerous than the original python attack.
Michael and Sarah's decision to intervene came not from reckless heroism, but from the calculated courage that separated true conservationists from passive observers of nature's tragedies. The rangers began their approach to the reed bed with tactical precision developed through years of dangerous wildlife encounters, their movements coordinated to create maximum disruption while minimizing their exposure to the python's devastating defensive capabilities. What made their strategy extraordinary was their apparent understanding of python psychology gained through decades of Zambezi experience. Instead of the direct confrontation that might trigger the serpent's most violent responses, they executed a flanking maneuver designed to exploit the snake's limited mobility while it maintained its killing grip on little Simba. Their approach revealed professional expertise that went far beyond standard ranger training. But the rangers' heroic intervention had not gone unnoticed by observers whose presence would soon transform this rescue attempt into something far more terrifying. From concealed positions throughout the reed bed perimeter, Chakafira's pride had been watching the python attack with an intensity that spoke to coordinated planning rather than panicked response. Their silence hadn't indicated absence. It had marked the calm before a storm of parental fury that would soon redefine every assumption about lion family dynamics. The most ominous development was the gradual emergence of pride members from positions that revealed hours of strategic positioning. Adult lions began materializing from the tall grass surrounding the reed bed, their placement suggesting they had been conducting coordinated surveillance of the python's hunting territory. Their movements displayed the kind of tactical organization typically associated with complex hunting strategies, but this coordination was focused on something far more personal than prey acquisition. Chakafira herself appeared last, her battle-scarred frame moving with predatory grace toward the reed bed from a position that allowed her to observe both the python attack and the ranger's rescue attempt. The matriarch's amber eyes held depths of focused fury that spoke to maternal instincts pushed far beyond their normal limits, while her body language suggested she was preparing to demonstrate why lions had earned their reputation as Africa's most formidable predators when protecting their young.
The ranger's assault on the python was a desperate gamble that violated every safety protocol in their training manual, but represented little Simba's only hope for survival. Michael and Sarah entered the reed bed with movements that spoke to years of experience navigating dangerous terrain while confronting Africa's most formidable predators. Their coordination was flawless. Michael wielded a specialized snake hook designed for handling large reptiles, while Sarah carried emergency medical supplies and maintained communication with the growing audience of concerned observers. Their initial strategy relied on disrupting the python's sensory control through coordinated noise and movement that would force the serpent to divide its attention between maintaining its killing grip and defending against these unexpected attackers. The effectiveness of their approach became immediately apparent as the massive snake's head lifted from its methodical constriction to assess these new threats that had materialized from the dense vegetation. But it was their direct physical intervention that transformed the rescue from distraction to genuine confrontation. Michael's snake hook found purchase behind the python's skull, applying leverage that threatened the serpent's neural control over its crushing coils. His understanding of reptilian anatomy, developed through years of wildlife management experience, guided him to pressure points where human intervention could have maximum impact against a predator of such enormous proportions. Sarah's contribution proved equally crucial as she used cutting tools to systematically sever sections of reed that were providing the python with structural support for its constricting position. Her traditional knowledge of plant weakness points allowed her to undermine the snake's tactical advantages while creating escape routes that little Simba could potentially use if the rescue succeeded in loosening the deadly coils. The battle that followed was unlike anything in the rangers' professional experience, but their focus remained entirely on the young lion, whose weak cries provided heartbreaking motivation for their impossible mission. Neither Michael nor Sarah noticed the ominous silence that had settled over the surrounding area, or the subtle movements in the tall grass that suggested they were about to become participants in something far more terrifying than a simple rescue operation.
The ranger's battle with the python reached its crescendo when Michael managed to apply enough pressure to the serpent's neural control centers to disrupt its constricting rhythm, creating the first real opportunity for little Simba to draw a full breath in several terrifying minutes. The young cub's weak mewing calls of relief seemed to galvanize both rescuers, giving them the strength needed for the final phase of their desperate intervention against one of nature's most efficient killing machines. But it was in this moment of apparent success that something absolutely terrifying began to emerge from the reed bed's perimeter. The ominous silence that had marked Chakafira's pride response suddenly shattered as 8 adult lions materialized from the surrounding vegetation with coordinated precision that spoke to hours of tactical planning.
Their emergence wasn't the chaotic rush of panicked parents. It was the calculated approach of apex predators who had been systematically positioning themselves for a response that would soon shock everyone present. Takafura herself led this terrifying display of parental fury, her battle-scarred frame moving with deadly grace toward the rangers who had dared to enter her family's crisis. The matriarch's roar, when it finally came, was unlike anything Michael and Sarah had heard in their combined decades of wildlife experience, a sound so deep, so filled with primal rage that it seemed to vibrate through the very earth beneath their feet. What made the pride's response truly terrifying was their apparent coordination and tactical intelligence. Instead of simply charging toward the python to reclaim their cub, the lions began systematically surrounding the entire reedbed area, cutting off every escape route while maintaining visual contact with each other through complex vocalizations that suggested military-level coordination. The python, faced with this unprecedented show of collective lion fury, made the survival calculation that would save both reptile and human lives. The ancient serpent released its grip on little Simba and began retreating toward deeper water, recognizing that this hunt had evolved into something far beyond a simple predator-prey encounter. But the pride's terrifying display of protective power was just beginning to reveal its true intensity.
The immediate aftermath of little Simba's rescue became a terrifying standoff that challenged every protocol in ranger safety training and redefined the meaning of wildlife encounter intensity. As Michael and Sarah carefully extracted the exhausted cub from the reedbed, they found themselves completely surrounded by Chakafira's pride in a formation so perfectly coordinated it resembled military tactics more than animal behavior. 8 pairs of amber eyes tracked their every movement with an intensity that spoke to protective fury held barely in check. What made this encounter truly terrifying was the pride's apparent understanding that the rangers had saved their cub, yet their response transcended gratitude into something far more primal and dangerous. Chakafira positioned herself directly between the humans and their only escape route, her massive frame radiating a territorial dominance so absolute it seemed to reshape the very air around the confrontation. Her vocalizations carried frequencies that spoke not of aggression, but of a deeper recognition that boundaries had been crossed and new relationships established. The Rangers' radio communications with park headquarters carried barely controlled panic as they described their situation to colleagues who struggled to believe what they were hearing. Michael's whispered updates revealed the terrifying reality that they were trapped within a pride formation that could eliminate them instantly, yet seemed to be waiting for something, some form of acknowledgement or permission that went far beyond normal human-wildlife interactions. Little Simba's recovery provided the key to defusing this unprecedented situation. As the young cub regained his strength and began moving toward his mother, Chakafira's demeanor shifted from territorial dominance to something that could only be described as maternal assessment. Her approach to the rangers carried an intensity that was both grateful and warning, recognition of their heroism combined with absolute certainty that any future threat to her family would be met with overwhelming force. The pride's systematic withdrawal from their surrounding formation occurred with the same coordinated precision that had marked their initial deployment, leaving Michael and Sarah with the knowledge that they had witnessed something beyond normal wildlife behavior, a display of collective intelligence and protective capability that redefined their understanding of lion family dynamics.
The story of Michael and Sarah's heroic rescue and Chakafira's pride's terrifying response became legendary throughout Zimbabwe's conservation community, fundamentally challenging every assumption about the emotional depth and tactical intelligence of lions' social structures. The incident prompted immediate revisions to ranger safety protocols as wildlife managers struggled to understand the implications of such coordinated pride behavior in response to human intervention. The most profound impact wasn't on academic research, but on the rangers themselves, who found their relationship with Chakafira's pride permanently transformed into something resembling a mutual protection pact. Subsequent encounters revealed that the lions had developed recognition patterns that distinguished park personnel from potential threats, suggesting memory capabilities and social reasoning that exceeded every boundary science had established for predator psychology. Wildlife rehabilitation centers worldwide began incorporating new understanding based on the Zambezi incident, recognizing that intervention in family crises could trigger responses that went far beyond traditional territorial behavior. The pride's demonstration of collective intelligence, tactical coordination, and recognition of heroism challenged fundamental assumptions about animal consciousness and emotional capacity. Most terrifying and beautiful of all was the revelation that lion family bonds operated on levels of intensity that approached the sacred. Chakafira's display of protective capability revealed that these apex predators possessed not just physical dominance, but sophisticated understanding of threat assessment, alliance recognition, and the kind of family loyalty that transcended individual survival instincts. Little Simba grew into a strong young lion whose early brush with death seemed to have created lasting bonds between human and animal communities. Rangers reported ongoing encounters where Chakafira's pride demonstrated protective behavior toward park personnel, suggesting that the terrifying display of family unity had evolved into a recognition of shared commitment to conservation goals. The Zambezi National Park continues to be home to this extraordinary pride, their daily interactions providing ongoing evidence that courage, recognition, and protective fury exist throughout the natural world at intensities that challenge our understanding of consciousness itself. Their legacy reminds us that family bonds know no species boundaries, and that the terrifying power of love, when properly directed, becomes the most formidable force in nature.
Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.